In 2010, we were the first company to, start this whole thing in India. So for the first 2 years, people thought we were scamming.
Scamming?
If you can't afford the biryani, then eat your dal chawal at home. It's okay.
What a credit card means for the first time borrower.
This is like your old ex.
Okay.
you
The comparison.
you better be graceful even when you end a relationship or you close a credit card. No, credit card गलत है. इसको बिल्कुल use मत करना. लेना भी मत, छूना भी मत.
What are the most effective ways for people to change this behavior? Hello everyone and welcome to Mind Your Karza with One Finance, a show where we help you understand and improve your relationship with debt products such as loans, credit cards and much more. On today's episode, we continue our journey into credit cards and we discuss a very important topic, namely how to avoid disasters using your credit cards. My guest, Aparna Ramachandra, founder, director, RectifyCredit.com. Aparna, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's start from there. What made you choose the very simple and in your face Rectify Credit? Tell us about your firm.
I just wanted it to be simple and catchy so that people remember, the retention is longer. And when I started this in 2010, we were the first company to, start this whole thing in India. So for the first 2 years, people thought we were scamming. So
Scamming?
Yes.
Okay.
So people came to us saying that, oh, do you give us another PAN card or, will you just do a cleanup or something and 15 दिन में साफ हो जाएगा and फिर से ठीक, वापस मेरे पुराने loans आ जाएंगे. So I had to stand on the rooftop and say, I'm not here to do any of those. And thankfully for us, CIBIL appreciated and accepted where we were coming from. And from there, the journey began. So today, it sounds ancient, but when I started, there was no score and there was no online report. So we have begun from there.
Wow. This episode is about credit cards. I think that credit cards are among the first, if not the first credit product that a person uses. Okay. So can we just talk about the positive side first? What a credit card means for the first time borrower?
That's a very good question. And that's something that a lot of people need to know about, that credit card is the first product that you begin your journey with. So, youngsters, when they start their first job, there is this big thing that, I have arrived and now I will do what I think is right. So invariably, they end up applying for an auto loan and getting rejected. So it is very important that people realize and appreciate that credit card is your first product. And it is a very brilliant and a beautiful product, provided you are mindful about it. Today, how we say mindful breathing, mindful eating, mindful living. So there is also mindful, dealing with your debt, and credit card completely falls under that category. While, like we said, that is your first product, which slowly starts to build your credit profile, your whole thing, and makes you eligible for a whole lot of other products that you are going to be looking to borrow in the next, 20, 30 years that, when we are talking about someone who's say 24, 25, he has a good 30, 35 years of, lifespan where he can borrow, repay, close, move forward. So that's the first product. And what it does is, credit card has 3 advantages. The first card, if you have a salary account or you've had an history with that account, that bank is more than happy to give you your first credit card. Okay, it may not be the best of the card with a lot of fancy frills attached, but I believe that a very simple vanilla credit card is what you need to begin with, because you also need to know how you are going to behave with that card. So you don't want a monkey that's already jumping in your wallet, right? So that's how you begin. And so that's the first advantage. The second advantage is, today, a lot of times, one is living in very uncertain times. There are situations where expenses or, some kind of an emergency. So this is easy money that is immediately available. Third thing that it does is, if you have messed up your profile, it is again the credit card that really catapults you, back into getting into the green. So for me, credit card is a brilliant product.
Okay. I want to get into the concept of repayment history. There are some myths out there that a lot of people have, that whether you pay on the very first day that it is due or on the last day it's due. Could you just help us with the importance of repayment history, how it works to building your credit profile?
That's again a very good question. See, when you take a credit card, when you start using a credit card, basically what it is debt-free loan for 45 days, right? So you have a due date by which you need to pay the entire amount, right? So if you do the full repayment, then there is no hassle. You just continue to use the card, pay it on time, and you move forward. Now, to come back to your question, whether do I pay it on day one or do I pay it on the due date? Ideally speaking, if you are able to pay on the due date, you are fabulous. Now, if you are doing those online net banking payment, then the last date is good because immediately the money gets transferred. There are people who pay by check. Now, those are people, it is better that you pay at least 5 days before your due date, because whatever Saturday happens, Sunday happens, holiday happens. So, all of those you have, covered. Though a day here, a day there doesn't really dent too much, but as a habit, if you are paying by check, make it a thing that you pay 5 days before the due date. But if you're doing an online transfer, then the last date is good. And there are also people, I would like to, reiterate, who are into this, there is the earlier generation which has been completely harrowed by credit card. So they have hammered that, credit card galat hai. Isko bilkul use mat karna, lena bhi mat, chuna bhi mat. So that is very old school of thought. And I have had clients where, if they have swiped their card today, they would like to go and make that payment tomorrow morning. I mean, that's just, killing the whole thing. So don't do that. Don't get paranoid. Get comfortable, get confident, and slowly start, building your profile. The data usually starts getting generated by the next month.
Sure. Now let's get to the fun part, or rather the dark side part. Irresponsible borrowing. I mean, we were having a conversation earlier, and you've given some examples that bust a lot of myths out there. You just help us with A, what is irresponsible borrowing? Okay, and B, some examples for us to understand that.
When I say irresponsible borrowing, now all of us know that there is an X amount that is getting credited as salary. Maybe some people have some additional sources of income. But by and large, we know what is it that we can stretch ourselves. Yep. So there's a range, right? So the credit card lets you stretch that range a bit more, but only for that 45-day limit. It is not forever. So you need to be very clear as to how much can you stretch. You can't be stretching forever, right? Yeah. And even if you've stretched, end of 45th day, you need to go and repay, right? So if this part is clear, then there is no hassle. But what we see is there is like I told earlier, if there is an emergency, if there's a medical emergency or any other thing, I understand. So one is not getting into a moral high or a judgmental kind of a conversation, but those are things that happen. Human beings, 2 plus 2 sometimes is not 4. But what we are wanting to now discuss is where, people go on a spree like there is no holiday. I mean, there's no tomorrow. Now, recently there were these BNPL schemes that came from everywhere. But the worst for me was buy biryani now and pay later. I mean, if you can't afford, if you can't afford the biryani, then eat your dal chawal at home. It's okay.
I want you to break down the financial costs of rolling over your credit card, right? We delved upon them in the previous part of your answer, but if you could just classify them. For example, let's start with APR. What does it mean? What are the rates? Penal interest, interest on interest, all of that. So what are the various categories that gets levied once I decide to roll over my credit card debt?
Now, usually what happens is, say for example, your credit card bill was 25,000 rupees and this month you barely could manage to pay 10,000 rupees. So 15,000 from this month, you roll it over to the next, right? So you carry this forward. So next month, what happens is on that 15%, anywhere between 3 to 3.5% on a monthly basis, there is an interest that gets charged, and there is penal interest, and there is a late payment fee. Now this penal interest and late payment fee is usually something like 750, 1500. So it's not like a percentage, it's a fixed amount. But the rollover amount, the outstanding, that is charged anywhere between 3.5%, 4%. Now, so this is what starts to then adding up.
The spiral
Right?
starts.
The spiral starts. Around 10 years ago, we used to have an option where another credit card company would take over this credit card dues and give you a new card and say, I'm bundling this, making this into an EMI, and you continue to pay. Now, no lender wants to add on a bad credit portfolio because they are stuck with their own portfolio. So that option is not there. The only other option is this. Now, if you have been a good borrower, your bank will again call and tell you that I can convert this outstanding into an EMI for you, where we will charge only 2%. So they don't charge that 3.5%, 4% late fee penalty, all that you will save. So you pay a 2% plus GST and a one-time processing fee. And depending on the amount and depending on your ability to repay, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, max they offer is 18 months. They don't want to risk it beyond that. But this, mind you, is only offered to customers who have been good borrowers. So if this has happened to you for the first time, like we said, in a situation which was beyond your control, then this is an option that you have. Rather than pay that 3.5% and all of that, 2%, 6 months, 9 months, you get out of it. But if you've been someone with a monkey in your wallet that is jumping, then this option is also not offered to you. So then you are in a...
Wow. What is the interest on interest then? Because I hear a lot of people talking about that. Like, let's take the example that you just spoke, a bill of 25,000. You were only able to pay 10,000, you're carrying forward 15,000 on that. Let's say in the next month also you're not able to pay, and you're probably not able to pay for the next 2 or 3 months. So what role does interest on interest have out
So
here?
what happens is this 15,000. So say for example now Feb ka bill I have not paid. So March mein 15,000 into 3.5% plus the penal interest plus the late payment fee is an X amount. So 15,000, say that works out to 18,000, and I'm not able to pay even in March. April, I pay 18,000, pay 3.5%.
Oh, wow.
And then I pay late payment fee.
Wow. So that's how it works.
That's how it works.
Okay, and there's one more thing that I keep on hearing, that I keep hearing from a few of my friends is that good behavior, by the way. They used to have an old credit card long ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they had this credit card. There was a small payment due on that, okay, which they disputed. And they just said, I will not pay. I refuse to pay. I'm closing the card. Out of anger, sheer anger, ego and all that. And suddenly it pops up on the credit report, and now suddenly my credit score has been impacted before. Is this true? Is this possible?
I always tell my clients.
And two, how does,
I always tell my clients that this is like your old ex.
Okay.
you better you better be graceful even when you end a relationship or you close a credit card. Okay. So there are two stories. One is where you've like the last one you've disputed and you refuse to pay, and today it's come back to haunt you. The other thing that has used to happen in India was Standard Chartered, ICICI. Those were cards. They were the early ones, right? So people were not educated to use the credit card. So a lot of them got cards and they said, "Mujhe nahi chahiye," and they just cut the card and threw the card. But they didn't know that there was an annual fee to that card. And then, those were days where there was no PAN card, no mobile number. People moved addresses. Banks didn't, KYC nahi tha. So the bank had no way to reach out, but this meter was on. So today that guy is looking for a 2.5 crore property, looking for a home loan, and he's just so confident that, both the husband and wife with these kind of fancy salaries, it's just going to be a cakewalk. And suddenly the bank guy stops answering the call. And then when you figure out why, he says, "Sir, aapka ek purana credit card hai."
Oh my God.
So, that has ballooned. Yeah. So, to answer your question, every time there is a dispute, please remember, it is you against an institution.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So, my 2 cents, I always tell people, pay the bill and then fight your war. When you don't pay and fight a war, what happens is they have an upper hand because you're still stuck there, right? So the interest, the penalty, all of that, they are still in a position to charge. So the best thing to do is pay it then, bite your anger, pay it. And then today we have enough and more options to make noise. Social media is the quickest thing that, you can just go rant and next thing you know, there is a DM.
Yeah.
We are following you. Please share what is it that you want to talk about.
Especially since you've got a valid point.
Correct.
Okay, now that we are done with the irresponsible and the negative and the dark side, let's talk about the positive side, the solutions. How do we sort this? So, 2 questions. First is how to change the behavior. Okay, I'll come to the specifics about changing the credit score and all that after this. But what does one do about this behavior? Because is there any way to avoid, prevent, rectify, to use your firm's name?
Yeah.
In your experience dealing with such people, what are the most effective ways for people to change this behavior?
The simplest thing that you could do is today all of them give this option where you can decide that you can set the limit to which you will spend. So your online, suppose you're online buying, you can already limit it. So then if you are someone who buys fancy stuff online, then if you set a limit, your credit card is going to get declined. So you're not going to go overboard. That is one. Second thing is, people also have this to go onto these, foreign websites, buy these fancy bags. Today you can use an Indian credit card, buy, get it delivered, somebody gets it, so all of those you can avoid. So international transactions, limiting the amount that you are going to be paying, and then but I will not still say keep only one card. My advice always is to have at least 2 cards, because for whatever XYZ, there is a plan B available. So don't but having said that, if there is someone whose wallet is full of cards, say 10 cards, 15 cards, and you are not able to cope, you're not able to repay on time, then might as well do your math and say, these are few that I'm not going to be using anymore. So let me just close these cards. So do a proper closure, collect the NOC, get that updated with the bank, the bureau, do the whole thing and move on. So that's the other thing. Now behavior wise, the main thing is, like I started, what you have to be mindful about. Similarly, it is you alone who can choose as to what is it that I'm going to be going to, and till till when, and beyond that I won't.
Yeah. Cash from credit card, the whole ATM thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's horror. So
I know that.
Yeah.
And the best part is today you can actually turn it off permanently. Just block it.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Please tell us about that.
So never ever withdraw cash on a credit card unless you know that there is nothing else that is available. So that's a big no. And like you said, just disable that whole thing. So don't get into that at all.
I used it once and I just repaid it literally, I think, in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Just to ensure that there's no
Yeah.
thing. Okay. Last question for you, Aparna. Tell us about how you actually rectify a damaged credit profile. Like, maybe if you can give us some case studies about how ugly it can get and how you've actually managed to pull people out of this. Because, from your conversation, a lot of this reminded me of gambling, when it becomes an addiction. It's very difficult to get someone out of that. I'm sure you've had success stories. Take our listeners through it.
See, a credit profile, a credit score, the whole thing, the beauty of it is dynamic. So there is there is a carrot and a stick. So if you are going to get responsible, the system rewards you and your credit profile improves, and credit score by improves, right? So the lender is not really looking at your credit score, he is looking at your credit profile, right? So we are sticking to credit profile. Now, if you are someone who has, say, for example, messed up with one or two of your credit cards, you've had late payments, you've had check bounces, you've not paid, and then you've gone on to settle those cards, and so you've done the whole, had fun with that credit card. So even in those scenarios, the system allows you to rectify, right? So what happens is those are the stories that we deal with on a daily basis. So people come to us, and it is very important that's why I kept telling through the conversation, whatever happens, whenever happens, go talk to your lender, go talk to your credit card company. And when I say talk, don't WhatsApp your relationship manager. Please, for heaven's sake, put a mail. Because tomorrow the relationship manager has just flown out of the window, and then you are left high and dry because you have nothing to go back to. And the courts don't accept your WhatsApp message as evidence. Right? So I've had this experience as well. So you need to be putting this in writing. So all the credit card companies, behind the card, it is mandatory that they have the customer care mobile number or landline and the email ID. So write to them. Tell them that, next 3 months there is an issue, I won't be able to pay, but subsequently I will pay. Or, I'm okay to pay a little more than the minimum for the next 3 months. Give the reasons and then say, I'm going to sort this out. And stick to what you are saying. If you think that you can do it in 3 months, put that in writing that you will do it in 4 months. It's okay. Don't be a hero. But then do it. Right? So it is very important that these happen, in black and white out there. And then in my experience in the last 15 years in India, I used to do this overseas. So I see in India, it is largely because of laziness or ignorance.
Wow, of all the reasons.
Of all the reasons. Fraction where, willingly, wantingly, schemingly, wanting to, juggle around and play the fool with the system is next to zero. We don't have that kind of time and bandwidth to get into that. Yeah. That percentage is next to zero. But it is largely out of laziness or ignorance. So a lot of people come to us and then they say, here is the file. These are the 4 credit cards that I had completely messed up, but I have a home loan that needs to get approved like tomorrow morning. Can you sort this out for us like now? Right?
Is that possible?
So I always tell them that, you didn't mess this up in one day, right? You took time to mess up. So you need to give time to sort that out as well. So overnight, nothing happens, right? So the system needs time, but it is possible. So a lot of it is out of ignorance. And then people come to us and say, oh, somebody told us कि 7 साल के बाद पुराना data साफ होता है. So I always tell them, ये 7.5 का शनि नहीं है जो 7 साल बाद ये साफ हो जाएगा. It doesn't happen. It will continue. Yeah. And a very good thing that has happened is just 2 months ago, all the bureaus, but CRIF Highmark took the lead, where people who are dead and gone, their data, if anybody pulls up, because there was a lot of misuse of data and stuff that was happening, so there is a clear mark on the right of the report which says this person is deceased. So somebody can't fool around with their documents. So till you are alive, all of this is part of your history. So it is possible to rectify. Yeah. But if it is, there is no guarantee, like how you say that in mutual fund, past performance is no guarantee. So even if you've rectified, but you go back to goof up again, you go down again. Wow. So it can be a roller coaster.
I'm going to end this with a few myths that I want you to bust for our listeners. Okay, let's keep it like really short, really sweet. Okay, first let's call it query. Let's call it question. I've never taken a loan in my life. Do I still have a credit score?
No, you don't.
Okay.
Because there is no history to you.
So I literally start from zero.
Yes. So you are called new to credit.
And when does my first score start developing?
After you take your first credit card, after 6 months of that is where your score begins.
Okay.
But from the 3rd month, your profile starts to get generated.
Second, I have a credit limit of 100. And I keep on hitting 100 every month for, let's say, 3 or 6 months. Is that good, bad, ugly?
It's very good if you're able to repay that 100. and the very next month, a sweet girl will call you. Sir, I want to increase your credit limit. Just say yes.
Okay.
And you will say yes.
Ideally, till what limit should I use my credit? Is it, if at all there's an ideal limit, 10,
There is
20, 30?
there is no the thing.
As long as you can repay.
Yeah. And each time you get a call where they are offering to increase your credit limit, say yes. It doesn't mean that you have to go blow all of it, but keep that increased limit because you never know when you might need it.
So you're saying higher limits provided the service well.
Yes.
Is typically good for the credit score.
Absolutely.
Okay. Very high number of cards, very low number of cards. What's the ideal number of cards that I should have?
For an average person, aam aadmi is good.
More than enough. Okay.
Is good.
Yeah.
Like that's like where you begin with. And from there, the sky is the limit. I've had people with 18 cards, excellent behavior, all 18 cards used for, whatever XYZ reasons, reward points, ye wo sab. And there's an Excel that is maintained, people pay on time. And there's a reason why they have those. But if you are not someone that can manage so much of complexities, stick to 2.
Okay. I have messed up on my credit card. I've got a massive due. Now I've got 4 lifelines. Lifeline number 1, phone a friend. Take a loan from a friend. Okay. Lifeline number 2, phone your father. Okay. Family to काम में आने ही वाला है. Number 3, take a personal loan from a bank. Okay. And number 4, transfer that balance to another credit card. Can you just help us out with all this?
If you're good with your dad, then my first option would be dad.
Zero cost money.
Zero cost money.
Very
And
good.
at the most, 4 दिन dining table पे सुनना पड़ेगा कि ये क्या कर दिया तुमने. But that is still a cheapest of the trade-off. And the next is a friend. I mean, friends are someone that who've seen your good, bad, and the ugly. So that's number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3, personal loan is only possible if you have not messed up in the past. Then there is a personal loan possible. Otherwise, the chances of personal loan getting rejected is even higher. And the 4th option is now no more available.
Oh, you can't transfer your credit card balance anywhere.
One balance to other, nobody wants it because each credit card company is sitting with huge NPAs themselves.
Yeah.
So,
and finally, who's the bigger person in a relationship of me and credit? The institution giving me credit or me, the borrower?
we both need each other. So they live off us and we need them because today I don't think any one of us is here who hasn't had a credit card or who doesn't buy something on an EMI.
Yeah.
So,
but if it comes down to me and them in the boxing ring where I have messed up, then I should.
If you've messed up, then you know which way to look.
Okay, folks, on that note, that is a wrap on this episode of Mind Your Karza. My guest, Aparna Ramachandra, founder, director, RectifyCredit. Lovely name. Aparna, thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you.